Hey, what's going on, guys? Again, in my car, seemingly making more and more videos in my car because I just don't have time to do it at home. But that's fine, I still enjoy it. So today we're going to talk about the debt. I know, a riveting subject full of math and intangible ideas, you know, they're not physical, these are all just concepts. And I know it's not exciting. I know, that's why, even though I bring it up a lot in my videos because it's so pertinent to so many subjects, I know it's not boring, so I don't talk about it, just the debt, all the time. But it's very important, and it was critical to my last video where I criticized Andrew Yang's universal income idea, because I was saying that we just simply don't have the money. And I ran the numbers of how expensive it would be. So I want to go into more detail about this debt and to further illustrate why we need to drastically cut spending in order to save the economy from crashing on itself. Just like 2008, it would be a lot worse in 2008. So let's go into it. So I have an article by CBS. Again, all these numbers, all of these ideas about how much we spend or what happened, it's not a conspiracy theory. It's not hidden. It's not on the dark web. It's not some Alex Jones sound bit. Like it's all over mainstream. I got this from CBS. Like I said, it's everywhere. It's in mainstream media outlets. YouTubers are talking about it. Mainstream media talking about it. All this information is all on the open for anyone to look at it. But you have to look for it. They're not just going to flash it in front of your screen whenever you're watching CNN when you're getting ready in the morning. Why? Because they don't like to talk about it. It's all there. But they don't push it in your face 24/7 like they push forth other issues that fit their agenda. Why? Because it makes them look bad. It makes us look bad that the government is doing things that's going to crash the economy, and the politicians just don't give a shit. Why? Because they'll be out of office by the time it happens. They'll be fine with their 6-figure salary and their 3 houses. They don't give a shit. They know exactly what they're doing. But let's go into the article. We might get distracted if we keep on going on that part. So this was back in October, but it's still pertinent. It's talking about to 2018, so it's perfectly fine. Last week, the Congressional Budget Office released figures for the U.S. fiscal year ending September 30th, and a few things leaked out to budget watchers. For all of fiscal 2018, net interest on the public debt rose by $62 billion to about $371 billion, according to CBO's preliminary numbers. That's a 20% jump. So we jumped 20% in the amount of interest we have on the debt in just 1 year. This is the J curve that people constantly talk about and talk about the skyrocketing debt. It's increasing exponentially. It's slowly rising over the previous decades, and then last 20 or 30 years joint, just a J. It's a J. Or this way, J. It is rising exponentially. This year will be even more than 20%. The previous year was less. It's just because we are just out of control spending. As a percentage of GDP, interest payments are likely to be the highest since the Great Recession, the Washington Post reported. Again, another mainstream media. They're radically left, and even they're reporting on it. This is no secret. Interest costs are the fastest growing part of the federal budget. Michael Peterson, head of the nonprofit Peterson Foundation, told the Post over the next decade, interest costs will total nearly $7 trillion, rising to be the third largest program in the federal budget. What does it mean by that? Well, when you look at the federal budget, it's a pie chart, and a big chunk of it is for Social Security. Another big chunk of it is for Medicaid and Medicare. Another big chunk is for military, and then an increasingly size of that is just the interest, just the money we pay to keep the debts, like the debt we've already paid, like the money we've already spent, just the interest on that is another huge chunk. I think those are the 4 major bits. I forget which ones. Actually, I have it right here. Yep. So Social Security is the biggest chunk of that pie chart that the federal budget spends for. It's $977 billion. The Defense Department is second with $599 billion. Medicare is $585 billion, and Medicaid is $389 billion. So those are 4 big chunks out of that pie chart. And usually people will combine Medicare and Medicaid together, so that is like $900 billion. Yeah, so in fiscal year 2018, the government spent $371 billion on interest. So that's what he's saying. It's slowly going to be the third biggest program, right behind. Usually people combine Medicare and Medicaid, but those are all numbers. I'll link the articles. You can see all the numbers for themselves. The CBO also said that the interest rate of growth in fiscal 2018 was faster than the three mandatory federal programs, Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare. In comparison, net interest on the public debt increased by $62 billion or 20%, which is what I said in the first paragraph. That's the problem with this. We are more than $20 trillion in debt. These programs are massive. The federal government was never supposed to do any of this. All of these programs are unconstitutional. We need to drastically cut spending in order for this to stop. Because what's going to happen if we keep on spending the way we are, the interest is going to rise more and more and more because it's based on the percentage of the debt that we already have. It already rose just by 20% alone last year. So next year, it's going to, like 2019 is going to be 25%. 2020 is going to be 30%. It's going to keep racking up and racking up and racking up, becoming a bigger chunk of the pie. Sooner or later, we will not be able to pay for Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare in the military because we have to spend so much of the money that we have in the budget just towards the interest. And that's when things start to get messy. That's where we literally do not have money for those programs. Before, when the federal government shuts down, mandatory spending was not affected. It was just discretionary spending. It was federal workers, for example, it was contractors, et cetera, et cetera. Military is not affected. This is different. This is a different case where we literally do not have the money to do mandatory spending. That's when old people will stop getting their checks. That's when disabled people will stop getting their checks. That's when the military people will stop getting their checks. And we can't buy ammo, for example. We can't move troops around because we are spending so much money on the interest which we have to spend on. Well, then again, like I said, that's when things get messy. That's where, and we can't borrow to pay for the interest. That's like using a credit card to pay for a credit card debt. No, you have to use physical money. Like, let's think of an example. When you buy something from Walmart, you can use a credit card. That's fine. You're not actually spending money at the time you pay your credit card bill at a certain point of the month. But when you pay that credit card bill, you can't pay with another credit card. You have to use a checking account or a debit card or something like that. You know, like physical money you actually have. That's the closest analogy I can think of to explain this, because I know it's intangible and it's math and it's annoying. I read off a bunch of numbers. But we can't borrow money to pay for the interest. It has to come from somewhere. It either higher taxes, so we just bring in more money, or we cut the programs we're already spending on. Well, these programs are already ballooning out of control. As more and more of the population becomes older, these programs have to rise too. The interest is exponentially growing. The need for to spend these programs, the need, quote unquote, we'll get to that in a second, is exponentially growing because more and more people are being old. There's just, it's like you're getting squeezed into a tight tunnel. There's nowhere else to turn. You have to either cut the programs or raise taxes. Well, even if you tax people at 90% of their wealth, even not the upper class, but the middle class too, you still wouldn't be able to pay for all these programs. That's how big they are. These things are hundreds of billions of dollars. There's no, you can leech off the American taxpayers even more than you already are, and the government's already leeching us like a motherfucker. The lower working class already pay 25% of their income in various state tax, federal tax, Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare. In some states, not every state. I know in this state particularly they do, but I don't know about the other ones. So lower people making less than the average amount in a state, for example, are already paying 25% of their income in various taxes. Upper class people, the super rich, are already paying more than half their paycheck. There's nowhere else to go. You're just going to leech them dry. And now people are not going to have a lot of spending money. I already mentioned this before. The more you tax people, the less money they spend in buying things. So that's less sales tax, for example. That's less money going to businesses. So that's less money that businesses have to keep open and to hire people and to pay people and to give people wages or raises also to pay them and to give them raises. So it's just a downward spiral. when you tax people that high. Higher taxes don't... Look at France, Germany, Venezuela. Look at all these countries where they tax the fuck out of the rich people, and it sent a downward spiral. People stop spending as much. It hurts businesses, hurts jobs. Businesses get less sales, so they cut workforce. People are out of jobs. Guess what happens when you're out of a job? You spend less. And it's just a downward spiral, each affecting the other in an avalanche. Okay, so again, the two options, higher taxes or cut programs. We already said higher taxes is just going to make the problem worse. So what do we have to do? We have to cut these programs. They are exponentially growing just like the interest. What we're spending in Social Security now is exponentially more than we were spending, 30 years ago, for example. It is out of control. We have to phase these programs out. I mentioned this in a previous video, but I'll explain to it. All of these programs are unconstitutional. I don't agree with any of them. All of them should go away. But what I'm not saying is we should just, like that, boom, they're all gone. That's not fair to people who paid into them, who were forced to pay into them for 30, 40 years, and then finally when it's their turn to get their benefits, you're like, oh, well, we cut the program, so no, sorry. No, that's not fair to the American taxpayer. What we should do is phase it out. So if you paid into Social Security for 10 years, you are going to get 10 years worth of benefits. Some kind of ratio like that. If you are older and you paid in for 40 years, you're going to get more than a younger person who only paid in for 10 years. They've only been working for 10 years. You phase it out. So the younger you are, the less benefits you get, but the less you paid into it. So it makes up for it. So you can still save for retirement. Your budget's not going to be messed up. You know, hey, I haven't paid in this program that long. I'm not going to get much of it, when I retire. So, but now I have more money to save up for myself like a responsible adult. And for people who just started a job, like teenagers who haven't paid a dime Social Security, they're not getting anything. Nope, that's it. That's when the program is totally off. But they know that. They know that when they're 18 and get their first full-time job, or 22, or whenever. It'd be awesome if you get a full-time job at 18, but it probably doesn't happen that often anymore. They know, hey, this program does not exist. I am not going to have Social Security when I retire, when I'm 60, 70, 80, whatever. So I can't depend on it. I depend on myself to save money my own way in whatever CD or savings account or retirement fund that I do with my privately owned bank. It's in my hands. I take responsibility for my future, for my retirement, for my own money. I'm not letting the government nanny state do it for me. I'm going to do it myself. That's a fair way to phase these programs out and to stop the J curve of expansion of spending that we are doing for these programs. So all of this argument is to show you that even at current levels of spending, even if we're just doing the programs that we already say we're going to do, we can't afford it. There is no way that we can do additional programs on top of the ones we already can't do. It's like, I don't know, you have half an hour to do a task, and you take on 5 tasks that each take half an hour to do because you're a retard, and you're like, there's no way I can do this. You should not ask for a 6th or 7th task. You already can't do what you've already said you're going to do. So that's why even more ideas like Andrew Yang's universal income or Elizabeth Warren's universal child care policy, or many Democratic candidates want free college for all, or free Medicaid for all, or reparations for slavery. That's why people who aren't brainwashed by the Democratic ideology and the mainstream media laugh at those ideas. Because we already can't afford what we're already spending, what we've already pledged to spend, programs we've already created. Why would you create more programs to spend money on that we don't even have the ones that we already have? It's insane. And no, the idea that, these programs are investments instead of spending, so therefore they don't really count, and they'll pay for themselves. I already gave this example in the comments in the previous video, where when you go to a bank and you ask, I want to invest $500 in this CD, for example, and they're like, okay, that's fine. Where's the $500? You're like, oh, it's going to pay for itself because it's going to accrue interest over time. And in the end, I'm going to end up with more money than 500. Like, I'm going to end up with more money than when I invest. So it's all okay. You don't have to worry about it. I'm not going to give any money. And they're going to be like, Excuse me? No. Where's the $500 you want to invest? That's the same thing. Government spending, government programs are not investments. You can't just call it a nice, pretty word, and then suddenly the rules about paying for things suddenly fly out the window. Nope, doesn't work that way. Sorry. I know in la democratic fantasy land it does, but in the real world, you're like, okay, you want $200 billion for this stupid program of yours? Where's the money? Oh, it's going to pay for itself. It's going to save the economy $10 trillion over the next 10 years or something stupid, whatever estimate they come up with. So it's okay. It's okay. It's like, but no, it's not. We need money to actually do the things we want to do. We need the money from somewhere. Where is it? Oh, we'll just borrow it, and it'll make money over time, so it'll make up for it. Well, we can't borrow anymore because the interest is already too high. We can't spend anymore. We can't borrow. We've already maxed out the interest. We're going to default on our debts, and that's what we're going to wrap this video up with. When let's say some stupid politician decides, oh, we can't cut the programs to pay for the interest, we're just going to not pay the interest. That's when we default on our loans. That's when we tell China, sorry, we can't even pay the interest on the money we borrowed from you. They're going to get pissed off. They already are becoming wary of the U.S. would be ever able to pay back the money we've been borrowing from them for decades. That's the equivalent of you not being able to pay the minimum balance on your credit card. So for decades and decades and decades, the U.S. government has maxed out their credit card, just spending astronomically amounts of money. And each time we just pay the bare minimum, which is the interest, just to keep afloat, just to not miss a payment, just to not, the equivalent of a credit card. Well, when you don't pay the minimum balance, guess what? Boom, you get nacked, your credit score goes down, you miss the payments, you're going to get knocked on with fees, your bank's going to get mad at you because you missed the payments. That's the equivalent, is that if we don't pay just the interest on our loans that China's been giving us, China's going to get pissed. Then we're like, why the fuck are we going to keep on giving you money? You can't even pay the interest on the money we've been giving you. Then they're going to stop. Oh, then we're in really big trouble. If China stops giving us money, China is subsidizing our government lifestyle. All of the people who live off of these programs are being subsidized by the Chinese government. The only reason why we can do any of the things that we do, as far as these massive government programs, is because China continuously gives us money. The day they stop, where are we going to get this money? We're $20 trillion in debt. That's what I'm trying to warn people about, how this will not work. How we need to massively cut the programs we're already spending. And there is no way we can afford other massive programs that are even larger than Social Security. Let's say hypothetically that my estimation that Andrew Yang's universal income of $3 trillion each year, by the way, not just in total, but just every year, $3 trillion. Let's say I'm wrong. Let's say I think his estimate was 1.8 trillion, or maybe it was 2 trillion. Let's just say it's 2 trillion instead of 3 trillion. That is still massively bigger than like the two other biggest fucking programs. Social Security benefits is 977 billion, so it's not even a trillion. So that one program, universal income, costs more than all of Social Security and all of Medicare combined. That's how massive it is. That's why you have to understand these numbers to know how illogical these programs are. That one program, and that's not even considering he wants free college and free Medicaid for all. I'm talking about just universal income. We're not even touching those other things, which again will cost hundreds of billions of dollars that we don't have. We're taking just this one program, showing how this one program is unfeasible. That's the summary. That's the summary of the video. That's the end of the video. Stop taxing people so much so we can spend more money in the economy, we create more jobs, better business, and better lifestyle because we're not hampered down by huge chunks of our income being going towards taxes. Massively cut the programs we're already spending. The federal government's budget should be gutted by like 70% at the minimum, maybe closer to 80%. All these unconstitutional programs, get rid of them, phase them out over time to ease the burden of the American taxpayer, which has been forced to pay into these unconstitutional programs. So it's not their fault. And thirdly, don't do any more massive programs that we can't afford. We need to fix the ones we already are spending on. They're already the ones that already exist.